Hi, and welcome to WeeRecap. Today we're diving into an American heist comedy titled Going in Style. Hit that follow button and never miss another movie recap. The film kicks off with Joe, a senior citizen who has a meeting with Chuck, the manager at Williamsburg Savings Bank. Chuck informs him that he's fallen into default and will soon need to mortgage his house. Since Joe lives with his daughter and granddaughter, losing the house is simply not an option for him. Suddenly, chaos erupts as masked robbers burst into the bank and begin executing a well-organized heist. Calm and calculated, they order everyone to lie down and stay silent. When Chuck makes a noise, he draws the attention of the gang's leader. The man walks in, gently lowers Joe to the floor, and surprisingly shows him some sympathy after hearing about his financial struggles.
It is a culture's duty to take care of its elderly.
Caused, ironically, by the very bank they're robbing. Joe also notices a Mongol warrior tattoo on the leader's neck. Moments later, the gang escapes swiftly with bags of cash. In the next scene, Joe is called in to speak with the FBI. He tells Agent Hamer about the tattoo he saw on one of the robbers and suggests using it to track the culprit down, maybe even with help from the TV show Law & Order. Hamer dryly reminds Joe that solving crimes in real life isn't as fast as on television. Later, Joe heads home with his family. When he tells his granddaughter about the robbery, she thinks it sounds exciting, until her mom quickly steps in to remind her there's nothing cool about crime. The following day, Joe meets up with his lifelong friends Albert and Willie. They find out about the robbery from the morning paper. Albert jokes that no one really gets hurt in a heist like that, aside from the insurance companies, and doubts the gang will ever be caught. Joe eagerly describes how smoothly the robbery went, impressed by how efficient the thieves were. Willie then reveals an envelope. It's a notice of pension debt from their former employer, Wexler Steel, and all three friends have received it. Next, the trio attends a meeting with other retired employees. The manager announces that the company is relocating to Vietnam due to rising operational costs. Joe asks about their pensions, but is told the accounts have been frozen and their retirement funds are gone. The workers are furious, devastated to learn they've lost everything they worked for. Later, the three friends meet at their usual cafe. Without their pensions, they're barely scraping by, even a decent meal is now out of reach. Joe, however, keeps circling back to the idea of the bank robbery that inspired him. That evening, after dinner at Albert and Willie's place, Joe returns home to find a foreclosure notice. The bank is giving him just 30 days before he and his family are kicked out. Meanwhile, Willie visits the hospital for a checkup. His kidney condition is deteriorating, and the doctor strongly urges him to seek a transplant from a family member, soon, before the damage becomes fatal. Later, Willie has a video chat with his daughter and granddaughter. His longing to see them more often is clear, but his finances make regular visits impossible. His frustration grows. Elsewhere, Albert gives saxophone lessons to a young boy. Sparks fly between him and the boy's grandmother, Annie. It's clear there's a connection. Back at Joe's house, his granddaughter proudly shows off a report card filled with A's and reminds him of the promise he made. If she aced every subject, she gets a puppy. The following day, the three friends reunite at their lodge for Willie's birthday. Albert gifts Willie a wristwatch with his granddaughter's picture inside. Then Joe drops a bombshell. He wants them to help him rob a bank. Shocked, Willie and Albert hesitate, but Joe is adamant. The bank is destroying lives, and someone has to fight back. Worst case scenario, they end up in jail, which, he jokes, might actually be an upgrade. That night, Willie calls Joe and agrees to join the plan, driven by the desire to see his family again. When Joe reaches out to Albert, he refuses, at least for now. The next day, Albert drives Joe and Willie to the grocery store to pick up some chicken cordon bleu. While Albert waits outside, Joe and Willie sneak inside and start shoplifting. Concerned, Albert follows them and runs into Annie, who works there. Before long, security catches on. Joe and Willie escape after stealing from an elderly woman's cart and speeding off, barely missing a bus. Albert, however, is caught by security. Once they're released, Albert, now furious, drives off and leaves Joe and Willie stranded. Realizing they need professional help, Joe turns to his ex-son-in-law, Murphy, and asks him to find someone with real criminal experience. Meanwhile, Albert visits Annie again. They share a sweet moment at her place, and afterward, Albert meets up with Joe and Willie at the cafe. As they flip through the newspaper, they discover that Wexler Steel is using their retirement funds to pay off utilities. Even worse, Williamsburg Savings Bank is managing the corporate debt, meaning it now controls their pensions too. Furious, Albert finally agrees to the heist. The friends decide they're going to reclaim what's rightfully theirs. Soon, Joe gets in touch with a criminal named Jesus, who agrees to help, for a 25% cut of the loot. Joe accepts, and the planning begins. With only 20 days left before Joe loses his house, Jesus trains the trio in everything from timing, physical fitness, and vehicle selection to building a bulletproof alibi, namely, using their lodge's carnival as cover. Eventually, the big day arrives. At 2:14 p.m., the trio is at the carnival. By 2:30, they're at the bank. Albert sets the timer and keeps the crowd in check with a fake gun while Joe and Willie collect the cash. The plan runs smoothly, until a young girl offers Willie her doll. As he kneels to comfort her, a clerk sneaks off and calls the police. Willie suddenly collapses due to his kidney condition. As he regains composure, the little girl pulls down his mask just slightly, and notices the unique watch on his wrist. Just as they're about to leave, Chuck grabs a gun and demands the money back. But his hands tremble, and when he fires, he misses. Joe fires several rounds near Chuck to scare him off, successfully. The trio escapes with $2.3 million in cash. That night, they celebrate with a lavish dinner where Albert performs on his saxophone. On the way home, Willie collapses again, this time more seriously. The next day, FBI agent Hamer watches surveillance footage and notices Willie's distinctive build and age. Albert and Joe rush Willie to the hospital and finally learn just how critical his condition is. He urgently needs a kidney transplant. Meanwhile, Hamer visits the grocery store, where surveillance footage reveals Albert's walk, a near match to one of the robbers. Soon, police show up at Albert's house, and then Joe and Willie are also picked up. The FBI interrogates them, but the trio stick to their story and airtight alibis. We flash back to their escape from the carnival. Joe swapped his hat in the ticket booth before slipping away. Willie changed into a different outfit in the haunted house. Albert used a bathroom exit to quietly sneak out and catch a bus. After the heist, they met with Jesus, who handled the money laundering. To find a match, Hamer organizes a lineup and brings in the young girl as a witness. She spots the watch on Willie's wrist, but chooses not to identify him.
He's not here.
A few days later, Joe meets with Jesus at the cafe. Jesus hands him a cage with a puppy inside. It's a gift for Joe's granddaughter.
It is a culture's duty to take care of its elderly.
Joe is stunned when Jesus reveals he was the leader of the earlier bank robbery,
Where's the tattoo?
the one Joe witnessed. He also admits the Mongol tattoo was fake, meant to throw investigators off. Jesus gives Joe the full $2.3 million, refusing to keep his cut. Just then, Hamer appears, returning a wallet Joe left behind. As they chat, Hamer plays with the puppy, unaware that the stolen money is hidden in the cage. When the pup bites his finger, Joe picks up the cage and walks out with Jesus, leaving Hamer none the wiser. In the final scenes, the trio anonymously sends money to help their fellow retirees. Willie receives a kidney donation from Albert. The movie closes with a joyous moment. Albert and Annie tie the knot, and the trio celebrates their well-earned fortune. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more great recaps like this one. Thanks for watching.